Before we start this episode of the podcast, I'd like to make a couple of announcements. The first is that I safely made it back home to Montana and have been spending a lot of time with my family. I've also reopened my Mountain Fit coaching program and have been focusing my attention there. That's why I haven't uploaded a podcast in a couple of weeks. Moving forward, I'm looking to get back on pace of releasing one podcast per week. If you're looking to take care of your health from a holistic perspective, I can't recommend the Mountain Fit Transformation Coaching Program enough. There are three primary components to this program. The first is the movement. From a movement perspective, we begin the program with posture and movement assessments designed to identify and correct muscular imbalances that can cause aches and pains and have a high potential of leading to future injury. In the podcast, you'll note that I often talk about building proper foundations. Identifying and correcting muscular imbalances is the foundation of movement. It's such a powerful investment of time and energy to develop a movement foundation. Once this is built, we move on to more traditional movement patterns that you might see in a gym to really hammer in these changes. These are the foundational patterns like squats, deadlifts, lunges, pushes, and pulls, and all of their various progressions and variations. Using these programs, you'll become very strong and very fit. But there comes a point where we need to transition again. And the next transition is into more rotational and athletic movement, using tools like kettlebells, steel maces, and Indian clubs. These tools will turn your movement practice into a meditation practice, and will bring your mind and body into an unimaginable state of unity. This is what I refer to as becoming Mountain Fit. The movement portion is all hosted on the Mountain Fit app. At the click of a button on your phone, you'll have your entire training program, video tutorials of each exercise, and a place to track and share your progress with me. The second portion of the program is the nutrition curriculum. This is not a series of meal plans or restrictive measures. To me, those are short-term fixes that have a negative effect on long-term health. This curriculum is focused on education and experimentation, and it's rooted in the latest of change psychology. It's designed to teach you everything you'll ever need to know about nutrition and give you the ability to share it with your loved ones. Every 2 weeks, we tackle a single nutrition habit, and we have a daily practice for working on this habit. We focus on how and why you eat, your relationship with food, and only then do we discuss what you eat. The third component of the program are the weekly video chats with me. There's just something magical about having a person to talk to each week with your health and well-being being the primary focus. It's a catalyst for transformation. In the calls, we will chat about anything related to the movement and nutrition components of the program, and we will also bridge over into more personal issues. Things like improving personal and romantic relationships, creating a lifestyle that helps you to thrive, relating your personal experiences to mythical experiences to better understand what you are experiencing in life. These calls end up being so individualized with each of my clients that it's nearly impossible to describe them here. But as you might expect, I invest a ton of time into each of my clients, so I only have so many positions available. I'm opening 5 spots for a limited time, and if you email me at josh@joshnordwick.com, and Nordwick is spelled Nordwick, and mention that you heard about the program on this podcast, you'll get a discount. Without further ado, on to the podcast. What's up, Tunnel Buddies? I am here with my friend Zarin. Zarin and I met through Aubrey Marcus's Go For Your Win course. We were part of a Facebook group and an online course, and we ended up going down to Austin where we met. You want to tell them a little bit about that, Zarin?
First of all, Josh, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure, man. It's been a real honor. And
You're welcome, dude. I'm glad to have you on. It's been a great experience.
Yeah, man, it's been great to have you here in Boise. Thank you for driving over here, man. This is great.
Absolutely, brother.
But the Go For Your Win course, it brought me in connection with a lot of people that I didn't know would become very influential for me, like you being one of them. And I know we didn't really talk or connect much in person, but we did end up connecting more post-graduation.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked with Matt Zion and Corey Allen and that whole group of
Mike
people
Swack
who went out.
John Waterlow.
Yeah.
All the guys are at that table.
It was a super good time, man. And like at that moment we talked about, the plant medicine and consciousness, and we all got into like a really good discussion, and like you impressed me and you blew me away like during that time. And
Thank you, dude.
for sure, man. So like even then, even that short amount of time with you, I really gained a lot of respect for you. So like this has been so cool watching you do your journey and doing your thing, and and coming to where you are, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Rather, it's the feeling's mutual, the respect is mutual. So that's cool, man. It was a great experience for me. And then following up on that, so you're now doing this thing called Expand, and I want to really dig into like what your mission is with Expand, why you're doing it. But first, I'd like to get a little bit of a narrative to kind of see the origins of Expand and the origins of like this this lifestyle that you're currently participating in. So I want to jump back in time. So if you can close your eyes and think, I might like try to call some memories to mind. So what was the religious or metaphysical belief system of your family, and how did you really relate with that as a child?
So my father grew up pretty LDS, but we kind of went to church. They wanted me to more explore my own belief structures instead of just putting me somewhere where I should be for my whole life. Because that's how my father grew up, and it didn't really flow with who he was or how he believed in things. And so they both were great with me in terms of introducing me to many concepts and kind of helping me find my own truth. And that's been brought with me my whole life, and like not floating, but dabbling in this concept and getting the strengths from this concept and the strengths from over here, and kind of being able to formulate or build my own construct has been very powerful, not only personally, but in a business method or in development in general. And I always kind of I really appreciate Bruce Lee for that matter.
Dude, that was on my mind. I was waiting for you to stop speaking because I was going to bring up the Bruce Lee quote, to absorb what is useful and discard what is not, and add what is uniquely your own. That's what the vibe I got from you. So that's cool.
Completely. And it's actually been really cool because unknowingly I've built Expand to be that way, not because of Bruce Lee, but because we felt similar aspects. Of course, he inspired me in many, many ways, but yeah, man, just kind of, I guess, not, he's trying to find acceptance in everything and truth in something, and I may not fully agree with one thing, but there's value in there, and trying to find the value that I can everywhere I look.
Yeah. So your dad grew up LDS, and what about your mom?
Catholic.
Catholic. So that's an interesting merger, and then they kind of really encourage you to, both of those beliefs are often very enforced.
Mm-hmm.
So they they broke that mold and gave you a blank slate to explore and create your own thing.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's cool, man. That's a cool upbringing, and I think it's a huge reason why you're having the success that you're having already.
Thank you. I'm fortunate, man.
Yeah.
I'm very, very fortunate. I've had wonderful parents, and it's cool too because they both came from pretty rough backgrounds, and we all come from a background that's going to build us either positively or negatively. And to see the people that they've become through some of the horrible things they've been through, I couldn't be around better people, I don't think.
Yeah, man. And it's kind of those tough situations, they are how you respond to them. So, my mom's a similar way. Both my parents are the same exact way. But it's if you respond to them in a way, that can be resistance that made you stronger. Or it can become the overwhelming thing that makes you a victim and casts you into that victimhood role. And you can lose your power. Or you can overcome it and gain the power. Do the thing and you'll have the power. That's an Emerson quote that I really like. And it's just because it depends on how you respond to any situation. There's very few things that are inherently there's nothing you could do in that situation. There's no way you could overcome it. There are things like that. There are people that get cast into that, and that's very sad. But yeah, so that's a cool way of getting place of where you kind of started and where you're coming from. So the next follow-up is, what is one thing that made you unique as a child or different than your peers?
I was pretty sensitive as a kid. I was able to really feel, I don't know, the energy in the household or other people. Was kind of building compassion or empathy for people. And I remember my dad, when I was younger, kind of worrying about that to an extent. making sure, I guess, I didn't go too deep in that aspect, but also build strength and things like that. And it's pretty funny because building that empathy and that compassion has become a pretty strong strength now that it's been like formulated and, I guess, acknowledged and approached properly or better, right? And also, I had a really bad anger problem as a kid, and golf and martial arts really helped me overcome that concept.
Golf. So that's interesting because that seems like to be the two poles of how you would overcome that. One being like a really like mellow, focused, slow with like really, really skill intensive, and the other being more like it can be like that, but it can also be very high pace and upbeat and like in the moment flow, like do it, and like use that anger.
Yeah, right.
So you
That's
hit it
super
from
cool.
both perspectives, it seems like. And
Yeah.
how do you relate with your anger now?
I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure how much of it like comes up anymore. Like, man, plant medicine and meditation and golf and breathing and like honing your energy back in or your perception back in. And so I've played golf for as long as I can remember. And I played all years of varsity golf and 2 years of college golf. And in order for me to even get to that level, I had to really own up and like not allow those emotions to like come to the surface, And like
there's something about that, man. I want to put something in there because there's this idea that people can be emotional or strong, and those are kind of these kind of poles, and it's very much enforced in our society that like you want to keep those emotions inside, you don't want to let them out, and like I think it's somewhere in the middle because I think you need to be able in the moment, you need to be able to control your emotions. You can't let your emotions become reactive and overtake you. But at the same time, you also need to be able to use all those emotions and like have a healthy relationship with them. So when it's time to express them, because they are your intuition talking to you. That's your body's thousands and thousands of generations of programmed into your DNA knowledge about how to act in the world. And that's rising up in you. So it's like respecting that wisdom too, and being able to use it. And I think you have found a good balance for that.
Thank you.
Do impulses come up often? Like when you're driving, do you ever get like road rage? Do you ever get like really triggered by certain things?
Thank you. You just brought back in what I wanted to say. Honestly, not really anymore. But what's really beautiful about meditation is what I found it to do is help you create non-reactiveness. So not reacting to your emotions, but being able to feel that sensation of what this emotion may feel like and responding to it through your conscious, subconscious being. So like when we're able to sit and feel our breath or memories or thoughts, like, but we don't just get up and move or create that negative self-talk towards it, we're building non-reactiveness and more responsive behavior. But that's what I was gonna say. And then
They're different levels of consciousness. Like there's a reactive layer, but you're more in the animal state when you're in the reactive layer. But as your consciousness widens, and we've been talking about the difference between like widening and heightening consciousness, because I think there is a difference. And as you're more aware of anything you could do at any given moment, and like both poles, so like what you could do that would be right and wrong, like you have to know in any situation like that level of awareness and consciousness about like what the right thing to do and what the thing that maybe is the wrong thing. And you have to have your own formula and your own philosophy for differentiating between the two and relating them back together. I think there's and like that's that widening of consciousness. So for me, with my anger, because I have that issue too, it's trying to be able to feel that impulse and feel that impulse to react. But like, what could I do with this anger? Is it going to overtake me, and am I going to become violent or say something that cuts too deeply, or could I really recognize that a boundary has been crossed and like pick no, and use my words articulately to put that boundary back where it needs to be.
I think really well put, by the way, and good on you for acknowledging that and moving with that. I wonder more and more as of recently if that sensation of anger isn't what we should be labeling anger as. Like we feel this sensation, right? And it's literally just energy. Yeah,
we load it with connotation when we call it anger,
right?
Go ahead.
So, that connotation or that labeling may attach our own behaviors of how we should be responding to this feeling, or attach our memories that have been felt to that said experience, feeling, and sensation. So I wonder, like, are you able to feel aggression without having it get to your conscious being? Like, can you formulate that energy and use that, like the breath of fire, or martial arts, or things like that, to where you can like put it deeper in your hara, I believe it's what it's called for Japanese breathing.
And I like that idea of fire. It's more so feel your fire than feel your anger.
Completely.
And how you use it determines what it is.
Yeah, so that clicked actually in this park like 2 weeks ago. How I was feeling like aggression, and how aggression could be really beneficial and positive in behavior and action. But can we harness that said frequency or sensation to become really beneficial instead of like allowing it to leak up to my conscious thoughts?
And what do you mean by that when you talk about it leaking up to your conscious thoughts? Do you think like it taking over your actions? Or explain that in more in depth, please.
Maybe it would be more of a separation, but you're aware of the separation. Like, so I feel more and more, and through my personal experiences, that there's a body being and there's a spirit being, and they've come together to build this one unity, or this unit of operation. And like I've had some crazy experiences to where when we were done in the experience, like my body was like feeling like it was thanking me for what just happened. Like outside of my own being, like my body had like a mind of its own. And so I wonder if we can like harness this energy to exist within the body and allow the mind to just observe and operate like within its perimeter. You know, so like I've been getting like deeper into like belly breathing and things like that. And so I wonder if we can keep that energy more in our center of gravity, which is what Asian cultures believe in terms of where you should be breathing, and like not allow that energy, that frequency to like climb up the ladder and like not infect but influence what's happening up here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're keeping in a place of control the whole time. Like it's hard for me to really go any further on the anger thing and like what you're saying there, because I get it, but it's a reach for me to really get deep into. But what I really did recognize there was you talked about the spirit being and the body being, and to me that's very similar to spirit and soul, or Father and Son, or like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit Trinity, and then the Holy Spirit is the thing that communicates between the two. Interesting. Yeah,
that's super cool.
Yeah, so there's that trinity of operation, and it's you, it, and the communication between it. And it's to me, it's like it can be thought of. Alan Watts is pretty famous for this speech, but he talks about how an apple tree apples. You know, and that's the fate of an apple tree, to grow and to have apples. And like Earth does something similar with humans. It's like if you think of the tree of life as like humans growing off the tree of life, and then they separate temporarily, and they go out and they live their life, but they're always a part of the tree. You know, you're always a part of like the earth. You're always a part of that thing. So and I think that's the thing, that the greater entity that we're always communicating with, and seeing that like this grand scale of things and this process of evolution and transformation of consciousness and whatever's going on, we're seeing our role individually in that as our body self, or as our soul, and our own personal healing and our own personal mission in life. But to dedicate your mission to that greater being, it's appearing to me, and I'm putting my faith in the idea that is what leads to what I would call like that redemption or enlightenment, or like whatever those concepts, those big heavy words are pointing at. You know?
Yeah. That's really, really well put.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to pass forward on that. How did you get really into the movement side of things, and where was that seed planted in you? I know you have some history with martial arts and golf, you said. When did martial arts become big to you? And how did that move into more so like fitness training?
So I got pretty big into martial arts when I was about 19, 20. And I've been training pretty consistently ever since. And I trained really, really hard for about 2 or 3 years. And it was in Muay Thai specifically. And I had like a bout of a Muay Thai fight in Vegas at a Thai festival. Oh, wow. And it was a powerful experience. Super cool. Like that whole culture, everything was just beautiful. And but I've always been like, since I was 14, I got really big into like lifting, because I've always been the smaller person. and I've always had bigger lifting partners. So it always pushed me to kind of get bigger, bigger, stronger, and stronger.
Yeah.
And me being a smaller person, whether it's golf or lifting, my technique had to be so profoundly on point for me to even keep up with these people safely and just build enough power or distance in my drives or accuracy or whichever. So like, I had to really feel and pay attention to kind of more of what I was doing instead of just relying on my limbs to produce force. And eventually, I ended up getting pretty injured from lifting, but it wasn't during a lift. I literally woke up one day, my body was like seizing up. Just like done, dude. Done with like all the pre-workout, done with everything. Like it was time for real health. And so I had this major like lower right back pain for years, dude. Like I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move, I didn't know what was going on, and that pushed me back into martial arts and pushed me into more movement patterns and really trying to heal my body and stay active and mobile without lifting weights. So then like that injury that helped push me towards helped push me towards these other modalities.
I was going to ask if that's how you got into on it.
Yeah, completely. Because I was curious. It's like, okay, so they're using lighter weights, but how do you actually apply technique and strength to these equipment, or to these pieces of equipment?
And feeling that force in your body. And
everything.
Like, understanding it, yeah.
Everything, man. So very, I started getting really a lot deeper into the martial arts and into balance and flow and fluid and protecting the spinal cord and making sure like your body's operating as one system, not just your biceps or your quads or something, right? Because essentially, like the way our fascia is set up, like we are one unit of motion. We are one movement. We are one big muscle in a weird dynamic, right?
Yeah.
One being. So all these concepts through the years have really developed into like, I guess, like the expand mentality. Like, are you able to put your full attention, break barriers, but can you come back to and hone back in and recoup and regenerate and then go again? Kind of like the expansion of a conch shell or a shell. Goes out, goes in, goes out.
The rhythm.
Goes in, the rhythm.
Recognizing the full rhythm. We were talking a little bit about heart rate variability, and the autonomic nervous system is the perfect example of that, like oscillating between, the fight or flight system and the rest and digest system, and like learning to understand where your body's at too.
Completely.
Yeah, so there's all these rhythms in everything you do. And that's like, the more I focus on presence and awareness and being in the moment, I realize the importance of that oscillation. Like, that's like, it's like in a song. Like, if you're going to write a song, you don't just have high notes the whole time.
Right.
You need and you don't just have like, it's a steady rhythm, and you oscillate away from the rhythm by going up, and you can keep it for a while, and you go down and up and down. And then like, you get a rhythm, and then to make it beautiful, you kind of break the rhythm occasionally.
Yeah.
You do things a little bit differently.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you using the term rhythm, because I've never had that conscious thought that rhythm is within that process.
Yeah.
It's very rhythmic. It's very beautiful.
It's the seasons, the seasons, the day and night rhythm is the first rhythm. And that's our circadian rhythm. Our body's on a 24-hour clock. And then there's the rhythm of the seasons, which people aren't aware of. So I see it like, there's ideas of like depression and things like that. It's like you're experiencing more negative emotions. You have less of a desire to get out and do something. Well, maybe that's because your ancestors grew up in Northern Europe and it was really cold for a long period of time. So your body is set to match those rhythms. In fall, like I've noticed that people get a lot of energy in fall. They get a lot of energy before winter, like a bear getting ready to hibernate in winter. And you need to gather enough firewood. You need to have enough meat. You need to have all your stuff ready for winter. And then in winter, like it's time to reflect and go inward. And be like, okay, who am I? Like, let me reflect on the past year. That's like the idea of like New Year's resolutions, and I like the idea of a New Year retrospection where you go back and look back at the past year and like, okay, what went well, what didn't go well, what could I do better, and reflect that way. And I've kind of cultivated my life on these rhythms. So even like the season rhythm of the year, but also mini cycles within each season. So spring is a time of new life. So we're in new life now. So I'm out here trying to do all these new things and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so great. You've cultivated such a beautiful perception, man, and like your way of moving and being and just being here with you, dude, and like how much intention you're putting into just making like hamburgers or breakfast or like saging the van, like you're becoming super mindful of where you are and your influence on the environment. And like it's pretty cool how manifestation works. And that's a concept that I haven't really gotten deep into personally, but it's been coming up more and more. And like, so I've been, I guess, trying to produce an energy or an attraction or something along the lines of kind of bringing more people like you around me and into my life, because like you hold so much value that I would love to learn from and have learned from so many different aspects from just being around you for a day, man.
The feeling's mutual, man. That's the same thing that I'm doing right now too, so that's cool that we're on that same page.
It's completely, yeah. So once again, man, just thank you. Like I really appreciate you being here and coming out. And I said this morning how like I'm probably gonna compliment you a lot, because when I feel something, it's gonna come out, you know. And that's what we kind of discussed earlier, how like I feel like I've been working on being more genuine, and the more genuine that I am with myself, the more I am with other people, and the more I am with you, the more I am with myself. And so just feeling these, like, I feel like if you spark a sensation of appreciation within me and for me and with me, that like that should be with you too.
It would be selfish not to share it.
It would
you
be.
know? And I feel that like that same way, man. Like it's weird for me because I'm going and I'm having these experiences with people, and they're getting more and more crafted, they're getting more and more intentional, and they're getting more deeper and deeper, and the conversations seem to be getting better and better. But yeah, it's this deep level of appreciation that I have. It's like I go through a little spurt in the week. You know, I'll have a podcast one day, and then it's a big day normally. Like we do a lot of stuff, we have a lot of energy and intent goes into it, and then I kind of die off for a little bit sometimes for a day or two afterwards, or after like doing a week of something like that where it's really packed in. When I have time to be alone, it's like my body goes into kind of recuperate mode, and it's cool to come back out of it and come back up. And that's I really experienced that here in Boise. Because like getting here, I was very isolated and getting from Portland to here, which was good. It was a really good period, but it's cool to come back and do it and be so welcomed and shown around the city. We went out and we played, went to a poetry slam, and then shot pool last night and played some darts.
Yeah, it was a great time, man. And like, thank you for coming with us and joining us. Like, yeah, you're always invited, man. You're always welcome here, and your ability to accept and welcome the welcoming is pretty cool in itself. Like, you could have very easily not wanted to go do things, and you could have stayed here or whichever, and either way I would have accepted and appreciated. But it's really cool that you wanted to go out and try new things, and that speaks a lot about your personality, I think, and your just the depth in your character. Like, it's cool. So thank you.
Thank you, dude.
I mean, you're doing something so freaking unique here, man.
I appreciate the kind words, man. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to do it, man.
Dude, you're freaking killing it, man. This has been just the dopest experience, this whole thing.
Thank you.
We're like, I'm barely in it with you.
Yeah.
Just a few moments, you know, but I appreciate what you're doing, and I see the value in the approach that you are taking.
It's a little ceremony, man. There's a whole ritual, so it's a culmination of all these different rituals. And I'm trying to organize my life that way. And I've told people, like, living in a van, like my friend Nate basically gave me this whole spiel. And like, you can think of like you have like a three legged stool, you know. And you can almost like imagine your life being like that. And there's like your where you live, your relationships, and your work are all three legs of the stool. So you can have any one of those off easy at one time. And if you're really good, you can have two off at one time. But you can't have the three legs off the ground at the same time. And I felt like that, man. And I've lost my grounding in the van because I don't have a steady place. I have the van, which is kind of a steady place to live, but there's no property to put it on, you know, for the most part, depending on where I'm at.
Yeah.
There's a big thing about where you can park your van and where you can't. Like, people make a fuss over it. And the second thing is, like, work. And my work is fluctuating so much and changing between Mountain Fit and reality tunnels. And then the third thing is relationships. And those are coming and going, fluctuating, meeting new people too. So it's really easy to lose your grounding. So these rituals for me are ways to keep my grounding, keep something steady. Like, those become like new legs for my chair. You know, and then like when I can pull people into that and like bring a little bit of that ordering and grounding to them as well and share that with them, it's just a special experience for me, man. I can't think of anything that would like leave me more fulfilled. So,
dude, yeah, you've freaking done great at balancing yourself.
So on to the next point. What was your like education like, man? I know you went to university. You just finished up recently, didn't you?
Yeah, about a year ago.
Okay, so can you tell me like what you went to school for and what your focus was for that and why you went to school for that?
Yeah, of course. So one of my main parts about going to school was finding a school that I could play golf. So that was because I got I had a scholarship for a while for my first year, and but I went for business for my first like 2-3 years of school, and then from business I went to communication, and so I transferred to Boise State because I went to two junior colleges for golf, and then went to Boise State, and like most of my credits didn't transfer, and like there was this big fuss, even though I transferred with the full associate's degree, because that was my intention, my process of how I know those credits are gonna work. It didn't work out that way. And then I had 1 year at Boise State in the business department. They wanted me to be there for 3 more years. I'm just like, what? That's just not happening.
Yeah.
So I switched over to my comm degree, and it was one of the best decisions I have ever made. I was out in a year and a half. And, dude, I didn't realize how much of a communicator, like, I was, like, built to be. Whether, right?
Yeah.
It blew me away because like all of these different concepts, whether it's with the plant medicine or with myself in martial arts or my environment or the people or whichever, like how intricate just a level of discussion can really be, and how many little particles and aspects build what's even going on right here, right now.
It's as deep as you want to go with it too.
As deep as you want to go.
Any little piece of it can go
right?
like into an abyss.
Completely.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the more you know, the less you know. Like one little thing has a world of its own that we know nothing about, or some about, who knows. But so it was really cool for me because it was able to bring a scholarly, educational approach to how I just kind of behave in general. So then I was going through those personal experiences with Peru and years of meditation and martial arts again, and then bringing like real education behind it. So it opened me up to more than just my own personal perception on what's happening, but now there's this research. Now I have access to this. Now I have access to this over here. And I built my last 2 years of school around the concept of mindfulness, because I knew that's where I was going to go afterwards, or I knew that would be very influential or important in this journey ahead. And so
that's really wise and bright of you, because like you can, when you look out and you see a lack of something, and you see something that can like fill that lack, which mindfulness is, like we're lacking that, or lacking presence in our society. So for you to see that and have the foresight to be, okay, that's going to become more and more important, and it's a place where I should invest my time now. It's good.
Thank you. Thank you. That's cool to hear. Thank you. Yeah. So like, I also felt in school too, like if I was gonna work on something, I might as well work on something that's gonna benefit me. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, my final paper in school was on mindfulness. I did a bunch of, like, I built, like, mindful programs for, like, other projects. And, like, throughout those 2 years, I, like, formulated something actually really cool that kind of came like a full foundation. And that's actually a big part of that foundation is being brought into that program that I've been writing for 7 years now. And slowly, like, piece by piece, little by little, it's moved, it's adjusted, it's gone from this concept to that concept to both those concepts to something completely different, and then one day it just clicked.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, that's it.
That's it.
Like, that's it.
Cool, man. I want to dive deeper into that program here in a second, but I want to get a little bit more into, like, you talked about your trips to Peru, and what did you go to Peru for, and what was that like?
So we went to Peru for sacred plant medicine ceremonies with Mother Ayahuasca and Wachuma. We were very fortunate. So we've been doing research on plants like ayahuasca for years before we went.
That's my experience too, yeah.
Right, but we never knew where to go. We didn't know who we could trust. We didn't know the really important aspects of making those a safe reality. And then Aubrey Marcus comes on the Joe Rogan podcast. I think 498, I believe.
That was my
It
introduction
changed my
to
life, man.
Yeah, that
changed my life.
That was a influential podcast, to say the least. Very powerful.
Super powerful, man. And he came back from a Spirit Quest, which he had nothing but positive things to say, and how you're in good hands and they're trustworthy people. And so, like, immediately we knew when we went where we'd go. And then a good buddy of mine, he went the next year. So he went now, he's in our group, and he went. So the next year after that, he goes, I go, and my dad goes. So we all go down with each other. And Dude, it's so powerful, man. Long story short, because there's a bunch in between that. We just went back to Peru in February of this year, so we've been down twice. I think we've done 23 plant medicine ceremonies in the jungle about. So just it's
And,
pure healing, man.
yeah, and what is the impact when you say pure healing, like on you personally? You don't have to go too deep into it. It's whatever you're comfortable sharing. Like, what are the things that you felt you've experienced healing on, and how has that like impacted the way you act in the world?
So I've found with myself and other people when I even bring up the aspect of mindfulness, like why would that be important to you or how is that important to you? And most people, including myself, say that if I become more mindful, my environment will become more mindful. Therefore, like, in order for us to help or heal others, like we have to heal ourselves.
That is the healing of others.
It is the healing,
Because like I think the environment and the individual, like Jung, we were talking about Carl Jung, and he said like the highest level of psychic integration is when you realize the internal environment and the external environment are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea of like people want to go out and change the world, but it's like if you change yourself, you are changing the world. Like the battle is in changing yourself and healing yourself from all these issues that you're seeing in the world. There's a reason the things that you see are important to you and they stick out and they look at like the world needs healing. But I think the wise thing to do is to see that and make what does that say about me? You know, like why is that triggering me? And then you go inside, and if you can heal that, then whatever that issue is not there anymore. It's not part of your perception anymore.
Completely. That's super on point. And we even brought up yesterday how, like, to me, that brings back the Bruce Lee quote of all knowledge ultimately means self-knowledge.
Yes.
So just like you said, like, how is that affecting me? How am I responding to that? And then you go internally from that experience. Like, let's say your girlfriend cheats on you, and that's making you feel a certain way, right? It's like, what's really happening? Why are those emotional responses coming from this external, completely internal environment? Because we are one and the same completely.
And what is it? What is the interrelation? That's such a good question, man. Like I don't think I've fully realized that by any means. Like this unity of the internal and the external. But it's something that's been like really, really heavily on my mind.
Yeah, dude, same the past like year or two.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
gauging the ideas of we were talking a little bit about duality, and I've been talking about this a bit on the podcast, but this idea that there's like these two fundamental energies, one being logos and one being eros, and logos is like the word. In the beginning was the word, and the word was God, and the word was with God, and the idea that like the word brought forth order out of chaos, and it's the meaning principle, and it's fundamentally masculine. That's kind of on that same side, even though I don't get super big into the feminine masculine dilemma, because I think that's a subcomponent of the bigger thing of meaning, and the other one, which is relating, the relating principle, which is eros, and that's fundamentally I think would be the feminine counterpoint. And there's this underlying unity, this underlying one thing, the universe, and I think what the logos does is it's like a sword, and it cuts that in half. And then it creates this polarity between this pole and this pole. It's binary. It's 1 or 0. You know, male or female. It's up or down. It's left or right. It's all these things. But what the relating principle does is it relates those two things that have been cut back together. So between these two poles of 1 and 0, there's an infinite amount of numbers between 0 and 1. Like most people don't realize that with numbers. Like there's an infinite number of points that you could stop between 0 and 1, and to be able to bridge that gap is the relating principle. And those are kind of like these two foundational principles that I'm learning to relate with into my own life, you know. So to kind of balance the opposites is what Jung would call that. So it's like to balance the tension of the opposites, and I think that's how we are as humans. We have these, at least we have more than two sides, but like fundamentally we have kind of have two sides to us. I think that's why we always see that image in like cartoons and stuff, like the angel on one shoulder, the devil on the other. And I think to the degree that you've widened your consciousness is to the degree that you have access to both the right thing and the wrong thing, the good thing and the evil thing to do in any situation, that which would be the best for being as a whole, and that which would be the worst for being as a whole. And it's choosing and it's aiming with the best, but having all the power from like understanding the worst and all the power from that, not keeping that out of your mind and just like not looking at it, because that leaves you powerless, I think, and it leaves you unrooted. And it leaves you like with the inability to really recognize what is truly the best thing you could do, because you don't have anything to compare and contrast it to.
Damn.
Dude, I'm happy that
That was,
I've been thinking a lot about that. It's the best I've articulated it.
That was powerful, man. I loved how you... that was freaking good. I love how you incorporated the widening of perception to, like, go across that whole relation between both sides.
Because it's all one thing. You can't have just one. If you have 0 and 1, you have two things.
Oh, that's so good. Because that feeds deeper into not heightening your consciousness, but widening your consciousness.
Well, I think when people talk about, like, raising consciousness, I think of people becoming uprooted. And, like, you can think of, like, this chakra system as an example. I don't want to dive too deep, but, like, fundamentally you have the 7 chakras. You have the root chakra, which is the base of your spine, and the second chakra, which is kind of like in your groin region, the base of kind of like lower tummy, and the third one, which is kind of your solar plexus, more power related. And the second one down in your groin would be more sexually emotion related. And number 1 is like really grounding, your connection to the earth. And the 4th is your heart, and that's the very midpoint where all the things come together. And that's where a balanced individual resides, I think, is in their heart. And the 5th is in the throat and the mouth. It's the ability to articulate the word. And that's where the logos is really powerful for me, is like the ability to articulate. And then the 6th is kind of like the third eye space between your eyes, and that's visualization. That's the ability to kind of see into the future. It's starting to get ungrounded, though. So if you're not grounded, if you can see all you want. If you're not grounded, you're not going to manifest anything. And like that 7th chakra is kind of like the crown chakra. That's your connection to spirit, I think, and the fundamental thing. And like you are that oscillation between spirit and earth, between the mother, the God the mother, and God the Father, which I would see like spirit being God the Father and earth being God the Mother. And like the third component of that has to be the individual, like the divine individual. And like that's the one that's relating between these two things. And
that's where, like, we are where heaven and earth meet, essentially. Ooh, I like that you said you can become uprooted when you focus too much on your visualization, but you're not grounded anywhere. Like, dude, you just clicked this in such a different way. So, for a while, I've kind of always perceived being, like, optimistic or overly optimistic as more harmful than beneficial.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people just think, oh, it's going to be awesome, it's going to be good, it's going to be good, but they don't ever put those real motions into action. And if you're not grounded in your real foundation, you understand, like, I don't know, maybe I'm completely wrong on this too, and I've admitted that many, many times, but, like, if you're not realistic in where you really are, then that optimism may become more of a distraction than an actual beneficial tool.
Yeah, well, realism is like the middle way, right? If you have the polar opposites, like one being optimism, one being pessimism, I would say like a person who's overly optimistic is always looking up, and it's beautiful when you look up. It's more pretty there. It's more beautiful. And the pessimist is one that always looks down. The thing about the pessimist is the pessimist never trips. So he can see what's happening below him, right? And the optimist trips. That's where his stumbling point is. He trips and he falls and doesn't reach it. But the guy's always looking down and doesn't see up. He doesn't see what could be. So he never really creates anything. He never really manifests anything. But the realist looks straight forward and aims up. So he looks forward. He can see the ground so he doesn't trip. But he can also see up where he's going, but he stays right here. That's
super powerful. Because you're getting those peripherals in work. You're getting the whole being into perceptive action.
Yeah.
That's super cool. I think it's cool too because I feel like Gary Vee kind of talks about this concept and like he's like, I will never be an NBA player, but that won't stop me from owning an NBA team. Like being very realistic and being on that same pathway, but also knowing where you might need to be in that journey and like understanding, and that's like that self-actualization or self-awareness or whichever that I think we all need to be able to be more rooted in our foundation. And I think so that's one of the big parts about my own behavior, whether it's in our expand classes or this online program, is to like become more aware of where you really are. Not where you think you are, not where you want to be, but like where is your real genuine foundation.
That's good, man. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So how do you help people find that?
A big part of that, man, is I believe would be bringing your attention or mindfulness back to sensation. Because sensation is one of our only like rooted experiential moments to what's happening right here, right now. Even if I was feeling anger from a memory, I'm still feeling the sensation right here, right now. So like in the Vipassana course I did in Korea, which was a 10-day, like no sound, no speaking, no human touch, no nothing.
In Korea too.
In Korea.
Okay.
And
well, can we say like what led you to that first, and we'll get into this takeaway that you have here first. Like, how did you end up in Korea doing a 10-day Vipassana retreat?
A dear friend of mine was teaching English in Korea, and he heard about my experiences in Peru, and we talked about them, and he really thought that I would benefit from a Vipassana course, because he did like 3 or 4 up until that point, and he basically so generous, man. I don't know what this was, the universe or what, but so fortunate. He paid for my flights out, and I was in Korea. I was in Korea for like 18 days, Thailand for 8 days, and Cambodia for like 8 days too. So like I helped, of course, along the way.
Yeah.
But
It's a good trip, man.
It was a beautiful trip. It changed me forever. And so I was there. He basically brought me. If I did that course, then he would help me get through Thailand and Cambodia. I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm down. Of course, I'll definitely give this a shot. And one of the hardest things I've ever done, easily.
Yeah. I had a friend that just went through one. She said the same thing.
It's so crazy, man. Like
I'm really being called to do one right now, man. So like that's why I'm intrigued.
I mean, they're here in the States.
Yeah.
Like you can go.
It's a 10-day commitment. I have to like kind of set aside the time and be like, okay, I'm going to do this. Here's what I'm going to prepare for it. Here's what I'm going to do to like, kind of integrate what I learned.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes the intention and the energy that I haven't felt like I have at the moment.
Dude, it's amazing the thought patterns and the memories that come into play when you don't speak for 10 days. Like, memories from 20 years ago were popping up crystal clear. And like, so one of their big things, at least in where I was to bring your full attention back to the breath. And they call the breath like our universal tool. It's something that we all share. It's our one connection to the moment that we are experiencing. So then you go through like feeling your sensation of the breath through your nostrils, and that broadens and expands through the whole body, and then you get down to like body scans. And we've talked about that before. And like feeling, tension and pleasure and whichever through the body, but not labeling it. So just kind of acknowledging like what's happening in your position in your body, and just kind of working through it, bring your attention back to your breath, that full cycle. And that's kind of where this whole program, one of the principles in beginning our foundational work, I believe, is just attuning to where we are, becoming mindful of where we are right here, right now, like what's happening, what's around. What senses can I apply to become mindful of literally this experience that's happening here? I have sight. I can see this candle. I can hear things in this park. I can see you. I can feel this chair. So the sensational approach to hone back in to this body-mind connection, right?
That's arrows to me, man. So like we're talking about that, like that's the winding in the edges. Is kind of where Logos creates like the 2, the 0, and the 1, and then like that sensation, like feeling between both of them.
Yeah, that's
like,
super on point.
Jung talks about like the thinking and feeling being polar opposites. Like so, like thinking would be the Logos, the masculine side, the meaning side, and then feeling would be the arrows.
Fuck, dude.
Like the other side of that.
You're gonna get me deep in a Carl Jung, man. Like for real. Like I've been introduced to him and I've heard about him, but
there's so much value, man.
Dude, literally, like in 3 minutes of talking with you about Jung, and I was like on board, ready. I was like, which books? Where do I
you're
start?
Taking notes.
Yeah, I'm taking notes. What was that?
Yeah, there's so much value, man. And like I studied Jung so in depthly over the past year that there's almost like an internal voice of mine that I feel like it's like Carl Jung's voice almost, and like. It just comes to me like when I'm hearing somebody speak, and it's like, oh, that explains like what I read there, and it connects that dot for me.
That's so freaking cool, man. Like, you brought up some points that I really appreciate and value where he was going with some of just the few things that you brought up about kind of what he talked about, and it's so refreshing, man. Whether it's on a podcast or in person or through a book, when you can relate to other people in a way that you never felt like you could relate to anybody. And the book On the Warrior's Path really did that for me.
What is that book about?
It's one of the best books I've ever read. Like, for anybody listening to this, like, if you wish to, like, better understand me as a person, like, please read that book. Like, it hit home so deeply in so many different aspects of my perception, of how I move, of how I operate or perceive people or our environment.
It's The Warrior's Way?
On the Warrior's Path.
On the Warrior's Path.
And it's Daniel Bolelli on martial arts.
Oh, that's Daniel. I'm gonna definitely read it.
Dude, it's the dopest book.
I've been DMing Daniel Bolelli, and he's gonna be on the podcast when I come down to LA.
No freaking way.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm definitely gonna read that book and talk to him about it.
That's so dope.
Yeah,
bro, it blew me away. Like, little aspects of, like, literally how I enter a room or what I'm able to perceive because of, I mean, years of meditation, years of martial arts, just, like, your intuition on this body movement, what can come from that? Like, what are dangers? What are opportunities? What are openings?
Body language, too. It's so huge. Like, you can tell the world about somebody, like, what their body's doing.
Completely.
They're communicating completely how comfortable they are with you, how closed off they are to you, and there's a way to kind of manipulate and move that energy towards a goal and what you're trying to get out of the, or what the relationship is manifesting, you know, and getting in alignment with that and getting yourselves out of the way. And how you handle that is
completely.
Yeah.
Actually, that's cool because here's a way to tie us back into Carl. I've been describing your body language as an external expression of your internal self.
Absolutely.
Right? So like that, or I also think your word choice is an external expression of your internal self. How you describe things, these things that are coming from you reflect on how you perceive internally. Or whether it's how I see somebody walking in the park. Like, what are my immediate responses to what's actually happening in front of me? Like, are they positive? Are they beneficial? Are they harmful? Like, it's such a powerful way for that. Ultimately, all knowledge means self-knowledge. You know, like, what's kind of going on in that internal being. But it's powerful, man. It's cool. That book blew me away.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna add that to the list of reading books. It's crazy. Like, the last guy I interviewed, Blaine, he recommended me 2 books, and they're the 2 books that are sitting behind you on my. So if you guys listen to my last episode, which was with Blaine Brignell, I think is how you pronounce his last name. But after the whole interview, we hung out a bunch. I asked him to recommend me 2 books. And he started this, like, I have a whole list of books for you. So I can't read them all. I was like, recommend me like 1 or 2. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, let me think. The first one would be Ishmael. And I was like, dude, look behind you. And it's like, it's sitting right behind him on, like, my desk. I have 2 books there. One's Ishmael. He's like, wow. And he's like, yeah, because he's telling me all about that. This crazy story where, like, I saw this book on a stack of wood outside of a 7-Eleven in Seattle. And at first I was like, that's an interesting place for a book to be. It caught my attention right away, piqued my curiosity. I was like, I'm not going to take it, though, 'cause, like, that's somebody's book. But it was outside on this wood, and it was like somebody left it there. So I went up to my man, I went back, I was like, no, like, that book was there, and I was supposed to grab that book. For whatever reason, like, that book is like communicating to me right now. So like, I went back and grabbed it. I hadn't even started reading it when he recommended it to me again. And he's like, damn, that's crazy, man. It's like, so I was like, what about the second book? He's like, well, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And that was like the other book that was sitting right behind him. So and then so the third one now is like you basically recommending the Warrior's Path, right? Mm-hmm. Daniel Bolelli is somebody who, like, is kind of like one of the top people I wanted to have on the podcast, but I haven't read that book yet. And there's just like that synchronicity tying
powerful,
in
man.
with the omens of being on the path,
right? Little symbols and signs and signals, man. The winks from the universe.
The universal wink, yeah.
As I like to describe them as.
Yeah, Jung coined the term synchronicity. Yeah. And that's like just like a meaningful coincidence is the most important, like most concise way of saying it. But it's also like when something that's happening internally is connected to the external environment. Mm-hmm. You know, when like those things are being wrapped together and they're truly manifesting themselves as one. And I think that's like how I'm processing that. It's like when I'm seeing all these signs, it means that like I am in the world where I'm supposed to be, and everything is just lining up and fitting into it like Legos, you know?
Like Legos, like Lincoln Logs.
Yeah, like just fitting into the groove.
That's awesome.
So that's that's just an important thing for me to like. That's where I get my my grounding and my waypoints. It's like through like trying to listen to and uncover and decipher those things. But let's get into we don't got a ton of time left. I know you have an expand class coming up. What is expand and what is the mission behind it?
Expand has evolved over the years, and that's how I knew it'd be. So for years, man, people were like, "Oh, what is it? What are you doing?" And I would always give such, a wide response, like, "Well, like I can tell you, but would you like to have a discussion about what it is? It's not just this one statement as to what we're doing." But a big way that it's been boiling down to is like a method for the evolution of consciousness. So whether that's your internal conscious being or the conscious beings around you, like how do we really help evolve consciousness as a whole? And once again, a big part of that for me, man, is becoming more mindful. And by me becoming more mindful, I'll be hopefully able to bring more mindful techniques to my like future children.
And your interactions with everybody too.
Everybody.
And, yeah, I can feel it. Like the level of like mindfulness in the presence you have, it brings me there more easily and keeps me there. And like we're vibing off each other with that right now.
It's same, man. It's it's reciprocated. The principle of reciprocity.
It's like spiraling upward like a rope. Like different strands of a rope spiraling upwards, and like any relationship or any thing being done right works that way, I think.
That's beautiful, yeah. So a big part of, I think, evolution of consciousness, I believe, is to be able to build a better environment for everybody to come together and grow from. And it goes back to internal, external environment, man, like beings and everything. And like I'm trying to build the best environment essentially for my children to grow up in. And I feel like that's a big part of my responsibility as a person is like, how can I expect them to respond better to their emotions if I can't even respond to my own emotions? And like, how am I going to help this other person, this other spirit, this other being come up into the world where they're around better information? They're not just getting sources from Facebook that may or not be real, but
and bullshit TV shoved
just
down,
bullshit TV.
Being raised by TV and being raised by mainstream media, like, yeah,
or anything, you know. So like, meeting people like you who articulates and comprehends and contemplates reality in general, or meeting people like Don Howard or whoever it may be that's able to bring real like wisdom, it feels like, into my own perception or operation, and they kind of help bring that along to more people. Like I think I believe more and more, feel more and more that I'm not doing this for the present moment. I'm doing this for the future outcome. 7
generations in
right?
the future.
Like, so hopefully my children can raise their children better and their children better, to where people are able to come up into environments built around proper education and better information and better ways to harness and build attributes that can be brought with them wherever they are. Like real skill sets, man. Like I think a big part of like going to school or whichever, like it's not about completing an Excel spreadsheet. It's about that work ethic that's built within the process of learning how to complete the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Or
interesting.
The ability to focus, or the ability to block out noise. That's what's that's what is valuable to me, and that's what I help to build in my own person. Like that's why mindfulness, man, means so much to me, because it's something I can bring with me to you, to members of Expand, to my relationships, to my family.
It's a gift that you give to someone, your presence. And like that's like an ultimate gift that many people are not capable of giving. So when somebody can give that and give that freely, it's like a powerful
super
thing to
powerful.
have, like even words are the same thing. Like we were talking about like gifting and stuff like that too, and like that's the ultimate thing, is like your presence and your word and like your ability to relate with another person. That's the gift, and like anything else you give is just like a physical manifestation of that.
Mm-hmm. Damn. Dude, once again, you're dope. You're dope, man. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, dude. That's mutual, man. I've really enjoyed the kind of the hangout. We need to kind of move forward to wrap this in, but I want to ask you. You brought up Don Howard. This is gonna be a tough question too. What is? I'm calling the logos out of you to choose one thing. What is one thing When I say, like, what is the most important thing you've learned from Don Howard? What comes to mind? And it's obviously lots of lessons, but, like, what's the one that comes up?
Probably maybe 2 and 3 and 1, in terms of 2 or 3 things that make up this one aspect. Like, when I feel about Don Howard would be just like pure, ultimate, genuine wisdom. Like an embodiment of wisdom, like patience and perception and attunement. Like being able to attune to that environment, man, like just sitting back in ceremony, just full blown attuned. So mindful, so aware, so perceptive and receptive on another dimension, on realm upon realm upon realm that I'm not even sure how to even begin to comprehend. You know, so just that, like, that ultimate level of perception and attunement and wisdom and understanding that sometimes maybe even helping is hurting. Like, and
go into that more in depth. That's a good, cause, like, I agree with you when you say that. Like, that was just like, yes, but I want to hear more about that. So
one of the ceremonies this past time through, like, people are purging and people are going through their healing, their own healing with the medicine, but you never physically hear or feel or see one of the shamans go up and, like, pat them on the back or rub their hand like, oh, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be good. No, bro, they're just back, just attuned, letting people roll through their own process, doing their own protective work in whichever management they may feel suitable or comfortable for that moment. Like, they're still there. You're still in protection, but they're not, like, physically like, oh, it's gonna be okay, right? How most people feel like somebody should respond at times. So, like, this beautiful way of allowing nature to run her course, but also providing the pillar for safety and protection at the same time. Like,
it's the kind of the middle way in between, like, where you are protecting without protecting physically.
They're a bridge, man. They call it chakaruna for a reason.
Yeah, that's what chakaruna is, the bridge, right?
Bridge.
And that's the plant that's mixed with ayahuasca, right?
One of them, yeah.
Yeah.
The mapacho is a chakaruna. Like, anything that bridges, any entity that bridges between the metaphysical and the physical realm is known as a chakaruna.
That's fucking dope. That's, like, my favorite thing. I want to end this podcast on that. So, Zarin, how do people get in communication with what you're doing, follow what you're doing? I know you're doing some, like, the Viking ninja stuff. We didn't talk about that, but, like, how should people look into following you more, or just connecting with you in general?
So everybody, please, most of our attention with Expand goes towards our Instagram, which is at XPAND yourself. And our website is the same thing, xpandyourself.com. And we're building our own podcast inspired by people from the Go For Your Win course, like Josh here, things like that. We have an online program coming out here in the near future. Been developing that for 7 years. I do my best to get back to everybody possible. If you're active on our Instagram page at all, you will receive a message back from me or a comment with your reply or whichever. So I really put a lot of my attention into our audience and building our, like, real foundation in communication with other people who are following what we're doing. Like if you're providing, like, our path with your attention, like, that's priceless to me. Like, you're providing literally, like, the presence of your being to something that seems meaningful to you. Like, why would I ever wish to take that for granted or to act like that means nothing?
Yeah.
Like, your attention, like, that means everything to who you are.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why, like, that education or that intuition or that process of development and putting out really good information and content, like, it means a lot to me, man. And that's why this program is taken 7 years to develop. And we'll talk more about that some other time, but I just want to do things right, man. And if that means, so I love Taoism, by the way, pretty deep into Taoism. And there's a really good Taoist quote where it's if you're taking longer than you thought you would, you're probably on the right path.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's a good quote for me right now, man. The patience necessary to walk your path it's a very real skill that everybody needs to develop.
It's super real.
I had a synchronicity on that patience. I was doing kind of a ceremony with a friend, and we were having a fire, and we were kind of talking about synchronicities and things like that. And like I'd been playing with Apollo, teaching him to stay, because Apollo's deaf, my puppy, teaching him to stay. And I was just like, and these people came out to our fire and like pictures, and I was talking about there's different stages to a fire. There's a cooking fire when it's down to its coals, but like you don't make marshmallows on like a full blazing fire, or just burn them. And I was just talking about how like if you wait, you'll get a good marshmallow. But like people who want a marshmallow in the first place most are following the path of expediency. And there's this big polarity between expediency and meaning that I'm exploring in my own life. So just like trying to sit through that whole thing and then cook a marshmallow at the very end. You know, like when the fire's good. It's like to act, not to say anything to them, just to act. It was like I just waited until the fire was burned out, cooked a marshmallow, and gave it to them. And it was just this perfect like brown, like perfectly brown marshmallow. And like, but what had happened when I was teaching Apollo, because I was really teaching him stay command with an open hand, and I was like, we were talking, and I was like, Apollo is learning. As I said, Apollo is learning patience. A burst of wind hit, like this little like fire tornado, like went up a little bit, and like the sparks all went up, and like a piece of wood kind of like popped, you know. And I was like, Apollo's learning patience. And I was like, and so am I.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that was last weekend, man.
That's so cool, dude. I don't know what it is, man, but I believe more and more, especially with like Wachuma in the plant medicine realm, how it's an external experience of your environment, how there are messages everywhere, dude. Message with the mapacho, message with the fire, message with whatever, and somehow, man, like our environment's attuning with who we are, where we are, and it's just providing just beautiful moments to pay attention to, man.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it's a beautiful existence, man. So cool. We're gonna sign off there. Thank you guys so much for listening, and Zarin, thank you for being on the podcast.
So much.
It was a killer episode. Yeah, like I'm jacked about how this weekend's went. I'm definitely gonna spend some more time in Boise, eventually. I'm only gonna be here for the few days.
That's right.
But I'll come back.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening again. Peace.